Tuberosities and Enrico from Aesthetic Professionals, and I'd like to thank everybody for attending today's webinar on designing digital dentures using the AmannGirrbach FDS system. On the screen, I have a couple webinars from the past that we did last week, and if you go on to our Eventbrite page, there's a list of all the webinars that we've had so far. If you want any of the videos, just feel free to reach out to us. I will show our contact information on the next slide, and we can certainly go ahead and send that over to you. Also, too, we do have another webinar, and it's going to be with NextDent, and it's going to be on digital dentures as well, and that's going to be today at noon. I don't see it on here. Actually, I'm sorry, it's not today. It's going to be on Monday. Sorry, my apologies. So we're going to, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Holly or I, and here's our contact information and our phone numbers. For those that don't know who Aesthetic Professionals is, we are a CAD/CAM distributor that distributes AmannGirrbach, ExoCAD, and NextDent, among some other products. We started about 22 years ago in education, and we have an educational facility out there which we teach in all kinds of different areas of dentistry. And we figure that since our background is education, during off time we would put out some webinars for you guys to go ahead and better yourself on the software from AmannGirrbach, ExoCAD, and others. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to ask, but do it under the questions section on your GoToWebinar. Don't put it in the chat. I can't see the chat, but put it in the questions. We will stop periodically throughout the webinar to address them. And by the way, if you want any of the videos from the future webinars, just feel free to reach out. And so from here, I'm going to hand it over to Mo Whitlock. Mo, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Oh, one more thing, I'll show our contact information at the end as well. So I'm going to go ahead and hand over the screen to Mo right now. So. Okay, Mo, it's all you.
All right, thanks. Thank you, Jesse. I want to introduce myself. I'm Mo Whitlock, CDT, product specialist and technical trainer with AmannGirrbach. I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Today we're going to cover our digital system. You may hear different terms, but the main foundation of our digital denture system is Ceramill FDS. What's kind of unique about us is we don't have one system and force our customers into one workflow. So what we do is give our customers the tools. We have multiple options to fabricate a digital denture. The goal today is to kind of show you the foundation, just the foundation of digital dentures in our system, some of the advantages, some of the ways that we can shorten that fabrication time from traditional analog dentures. What we do is I'm going to also touch a little bit on some of the different options, but in the future we're going to have specific workflows for specific partners that we've used and have added to our workflow. So mainly one of the things I want to get come across today is to show you our digital workflow and our options and the flexibility we have in our software to be able to fabricate the prosthesis that best fits your practice, your office, your workflow. So right now on the slide, this is our FDS system. We have our Motion 2 here, and if you can see on the screen is one of our arms, one of our attachments, and it's one of our options that we can mill the undersides of these dentures. It's just one of our completions. So this first screen is our FDS with wax option. So for labs or customers that want to still do a wax try-in, we also give that option as well. They can print this as well. So we wanted to tie in that it's not just completely digital. You can be completely digital, but then again, we can still not leave behind our analog roots and tie that in as well. So you have our Artex with our digital denture milled and waxed in this screen you see right here. This is just I wanted to give kind of an overview of the process before we get into actually designing. I'm going to do a lot of live designing from start to finish today. But you know, traditionally we have our articulator going into the scanner. We design, and then digitally we have a digital representation of that articulator in the software. We have Basal Adaption, which is kind of sets us apart from a lot of denture systems you have out there, or digital denture systems, where we can actually adapt and adjust the teeth for basal reduction for the times where we don't have enough room between that base, the ridge, and the teeth. All that can be done digitally, and the mill can make those adjustments for us. We have our milling, our Motion 2, which does the wet milling. It'll mill the card. It'll mill whether you want this to be wax, whether you want this to be acrylic. Our mill can do both simultaneously. Okay, so we're gonna get directly into design in our software from here. So I'm gonna move this out of the way. So those of you that are used to our system, you know, this is our our database screen where we are basically telling the system what we're doing. If you're new to the system, our system is exocad based. What we do is take exocad, customize it towards our mill and our equipment. So it's one single workflow. So when you hear me say workflow today, it is a full solution. It is not scan, design, send it off to somebody else to do, send it back for me to finish. We're doing this all in one workflow in our environment. So in this screen here, we just filled out a name. Here in the information side, we can put what we're doing, what type, what workflow we're using, because like I said, there's multiple ways that we can do digital dentures in our system. For today, we're going to do a basic full denture, upper and lower, and then once I design it, I'm going to show you how you can go in different directions, whether you want to print that base, mill it in wax, mill it in acrylic. It's totally in your control where to go from there. So to save time, we already scanned these in. So I'm going to go directly to our design. And please, at any time, feel free, like Jesse said earlier, go ahead and ask us any questions. I want this really to be interactive, so we can stop and answer any questions you might have. All right, so let me open up the screen. So we have the first step, and it's going to be a model analysis. Before I go there, let me show you what this is. So this is the rust color you see right here is our aesthetic plate, base plate and occlusal rims. If you have previous dentures and maybe you relined it and you have it in the correct position, you can scan that as well. And you see we can toggle that off and on. But mainly at this point, it's giving us our reference. We have our plane, we have our midline, and that's kind of the basis, kind of the guide. We want to look at it as like a pre-op to let us know where we place the teeth. So I'm going to start the model analysis. What's nice about this model analysis is for technicians who haven't been trained in dentures, the software actually walks you through a lot of the anatomical features, and really helps explain the nomenclature of these different parts of the arch. So you see on the model, we have a wizard right here that's going to walk us through each step. I like to show this little question mark right here. I think I talk about this in every webinar that I do, but it's really important. This question mark right here on the wizard, when you hit that, it's like our own Wikipedia. So
hey,
it'll.
Mo,
yep.
I have a couple questions. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. Yep.
First, it's actually several questions. Okay, the tooth selection that would be under removal dentures and full dentures. That's probably not that clear of a question the way I asked it.
Oh,
is the tooth?
Yeah, it's coming up. So we'll select the teeth. In the process, we first are analyzing the models. After we get that, we analyze it and mark all of our locators. It's going to give us the option to place teeth in that ridge. So it's coming up in a couple steps.
Okay. And then another question, which I'm not sure if we can do this on here, but can you show how to scan in an impression and convert it so they don't have to pour up models?
Maybe we do a scanning webinar, because I'm at home. I don't have a scanner on me. What you would do is we have digital scanning for digital impressions. So we would scan that in and it actually inverts it. So let's go back. I can show, we can kind of show that. So what would happen is, let me bring these jaw scans back in. So this scan here, we take in our software or in our scanner, we would scan the impression. It would come in like this, and the software, knowing that it was a digital impression, would flip the image, and then we get the actual ridge, the actual edentulous surface. To piggyback on that question, or to give you another answer, what's kind of one of the unique features of our scanner is we can place the entire articulator in our scanner without any adapters, without scanning half of it, rotating and scanning the other. We can put the entire articulator in here, and we can record this relationship. So this relationship is critical, and the ability to transfer that mount directly in here and capture this without adapters, without remount jigs or anything of that nature is just another advantage when we're talking about accuracy when making these dentures. Okay. What else?
Another. I got a couple more. You may or may not know this, but do you know if we can integrate the DOF UHD scanner into the FDS software?
Yeah. So here's our philosophy at AmannGirrbach. We're a complete system, but we are also modular in that we can attach to wherever that customer is. So I always tell customers when I get this question, what I tell the customer is if your scanner can reproduce this relationship and you can get an aesthetic plate, our software, there's no prejudice. We don't care where it comes from as long as you can bring that in. All right.
Okay, great. And there's one more question, but I think you're going to cover it in a couple more slides. What materials do you select and parameters? But I would imagine that's going to be throughout the process, correct?
Yes. Yeah, we'll be covering that. We'll cover all the different options at that point. So there's multiple ways they can mill, and that's the advantage of our mill. We can mill multiple materials, print. They can all decide it, but we'll cover that later. How's that? Any other questions so far?
No, we're good.
Okay. All right. So we'll go back to the model analysis. We have our denture here, or we have our models, and we have our aesthetic plate. So now we just follow the wizard. So right now it says we're going to work on the occlusal plane. So I'm going to define by 3. I'm going to select define by 3 points. So we click that button, and now we have another chart pop up, and then it says, okay, we're going to set the point on the left side. So I go over to the left, mark it. Now I go to the right, and now it says center. So I go to my center and apply, and I have my plane. If you have a specific articulator, that's what this one is. You can define it by certain planes. If you notice, we have, of course, our Artex articulator, and like I said earlier, we don't lock anybody out. So you see I have multiple articulators in here to be able to load. Okay, so now we're ready. I'm going to go next. And here's the part I was telling you about where you customers who've never designed a denture before, our model analysis and our steps walk you through it. So it really lowers that curve, that learning curve. So now it says mark incisal papilla by drawing a line around it. So I'm going to mark these points here. And I'm going to go next. Now it says my tuberosities. Oh, let me zoom. Let me go back for a second. I think our plane got moved. I'm gonna adjust this back because I moved it and selected that other articulator. So let's reset this real quick. Definitely don't want my midline there.
There was a question. Do you approve using digital impressions? I'm sorry. Do you approve using an intraoral scanner for doing dentures?
If it's difficult. You know, I have some dentists that have really made it work. It's just one of those things of getting the nature of an intraoral scanner is stitching the material together. So a lab scanner is taking broad images of the entire arch. So, but we've had them do it. It's just, again, it goes back to this. If you can get that scan, it's possible. It's just more difficult because you're getting the scan, but then you still have to get the relationship between the two. So then you can use a bite or base plate and occlusal rims. So it is possible. It's just a little more difficult, but if you can handle that scanner and comfortable with the scanner, it's definitely possible. All right, so let's go here. Next. Now I'm going to mark my tuberosities. Let's go to the other side. I can zoom out if you need to make adjustments. We definitely can move this a little bit. So I just want to highlight that tuberosity region. Go next. I need to adjust the midline. So it's taking where I mark my incisal papilla and dividing that between the two tuberosities to get the midline. If that's fine, you can go next, but you can adjust this too if you want. Labial surfaces limit. This is adjustable as well, but it's the default is 8 millimeters from the incisal papilla. So we're going to leave that at default, but you can move that in and out. The next step is position of the laterals, which is the canines or the cuspids. We're going to mark that, which is traditionally next to your frenums, your buccal frenums. Or if you're measuring the width of the nose, it's also similar. So we go next. Position of the first premolar is the next step. So we're going to put that right behind our canines. Hamular notch, we mark those. So really, it's almost like paint by colors. It kind of gives you a picture where these are at. You just mark the locations. And I'm going to mark my buccal frenum. Let's move this over here. So now we moved over to the lower. Define the first premolar position. Lingual frenum. Retromolar pads. Everybody okay so far with this? Any questions so far?
I have no new questions yet.
Okay. So we go next. And again, it'll use So it'll use the retromolar pads with the lingual frenum to get the midline, and that's, you still can adjust that, but we're going to leave it to where the computer selected. So we'll go next. So there's my ridge midline, labial surfaces limit. Sometimes I move this. It can get a little close depending on your ridge. It's marking our ridge line, our alveolar ridge line. I'm going to lift this up. Sometimes it'll miss that. So you see, it's just like when you're marking margins. We'll move that up a little bit. And we'll go next. So auto detect. This is nice where it automatically selects. So, you know, traditionally on dentures, for your first molar position is the lowest part of the arch or the ridge, and the software automatically detects that for us. And as well as the lower point, it will pick the distal border of the last molar, which 2/3 up the retromolar pad, and it gives us our degrees. And that degree is the relationship between the lower point and the angle going up the retromolar pad. There's our max ridge. I'm going to fix that. We'll go next. So all of that work is basically getting us to this point. So we do our model analysis to figure out the most stable place to place our teeth on the ridge. The blue.
Well, I do have a question. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. Okay.
The intermaxillary relation and the centric relation, could you make it with a digital Gothic arch?
A digital what? I'm sorry?
Gothic arch.
Yes. If you're going to, well, if you have the correct module, if you have the movement, and then when we get into the articulator, I'm going to show you, because I'm going to activate the articulator for this. But you can incorporate those movements. So this is more of a placing it a widthwise. So the blue is the widest point. The green is the most interior point. Red is ideal where you're going to place the teeth. All right, now there's our lowers. Same thing. You have your kind of your borders. So as you can tell, where you mark your retromolar pad is kind of going to be your borders of where the computer is going to initially place the teeth. Now, keep in mind, it's still a computer. It's going to place those teeth, but we still have the ability to adjust it where we see fit. So now this final setup is comparing the upper and lower, where those lines are, and determining the best place to put these. I tell customers who do this, they want to see this is perfect on both sides. It's nature. That's why I tell them it's not perfect. So maybe on this side, there's less maneuverability, less flexibility, just because of the relationship between the upper and the lower of where you can place those teeth. So I'll click OK. And now we are, model analysis is complete. So we go next. And I think somebody asked earlier about teeth placement. This workflow, it's gonna work traditionally like, well, actually a little bit different, because, you know, we'll have wax here first. Digitally, we're able to magically float these teeth. So we're actually going to select the teeth first, and it's going to build the base around where we put it.
Could you use the M-Smile to help with the situation?
M-Smile, it's not incorporated yet in this workflow. We were told it is coming in a future update. You can import a picture. So you see right here, where's the, actually in the expert mode, I can add a picture, but M-Smile will be incorporated in this. It will be added to that relationship. Okay, let me go back. All right, so now we're here at the tooth selection. We are going to, I'm just going to pick some teeth and show you how we can maneuver this. Let's do, so when you rotate through here, you're going to have your teeth selection. Basically, it's going to be what teeth you use. So let's just we'll put some lingualized, some Vita lingualized, and then we'll see what the computer selects. So I'm gonna put place posteriors, and it's gonna put those teeth that I selected, and I'm gonna do anteriors. And so you notice right now, first thing I see here on the selection, let me bring my aesthetic plate in. So my maxillary teeth, I'm gonna have to move those in a little bit because I want to fit it to the aesthetic plate. But before that, I noticed these teeth are too small on the lower. So when you recognize that, all you have to do is go back in. And so I selected 33, and clearly I need bigger teeth. So you see the width here is 33.2. So let's jump up to, we'll do 37 and replace this. A little better, actually a little closer, but still, I still got some room. I like showing this because analog wise, when we do this, you're scraping a lot of wax, you're moving teeth. Here with a click of a button digitally, I can drop in multiple anteriors with a click of a button. So now if I see that, that looks better. So in a couple of clicks, normally that would take quite a bit to change those and open up those tooth cards and clean the wax, fit it in, heat up the wax. Digital just lets you jump right in and select. So let's go with this relationship here. So if you notice, I have my midline, I have my aesthetic plate, I have my plane, which gives me all my tools I need. I'm not really worried about moving anything right now. I just want to make sure I got the right teeth selected. Let's go next.
Can you use a stock library tooth?
A stock?
Or could you not? Hold on, let me rephrase that question. It says, can you not use a stock library tooth and mill them in one unit?
Mills. So you're just throwing, like, if you have a different library. So if you have a different library, you definitely can use a different library. Yeah, you can put multiple libraries in there. So that leads to what I was saying earlier about options. So if you let's say you find a generic denture tooth library and you want to print those teeth or mill those teeth in a different material, you can. We don't restrict you from doing that. For this, go ahead. Yep.
No, go ahead. No.
Oh, so for these, like for example, Vita teeth or Kozer, anything that these are created, these are protected by that particular company. And so this system I'm showing you now, where you actually buy these teeth cards, and they're similar to the traditional denture tooth cards, but these cards are CAD/CAM denture tooth cards, and we actually will place it in our mill and mill it for you. So a lot of work that you usually do by hand, our mill will actually mill those underside surfaces for you. Okay, so here's usually where, okay, yep. Another question?
One more question. Can you take a pre-op, say if the patient had upper lower dentures already, can you scan the pre-op and use that as a template?
Absolutely. So that's what I was talking about earlier when I was showing this screen here. As long as you, however you get this relationship, this is a guide. So this is a pre-op. It just happens to be the base plate and occlusal rims. So if you have old dentures and you've done I would definitely do a reline and get it in the position that you want it. But once you get it there, you can scan that in and use that as a pre-op. Absolutely. Yep. And that'll help in the tooth selection because you can match the same teeth, sizes that they had before.
Okay.
Perfect. All right. So here's usually where it takes the most time. Similar to CAD/CAM in just designing, is getting this position correctly. So if you notice, I'm in chain mode, and I want to move some of these. I want to move that back. So you notice I'm using that as my guide. So I'm moving that back into position. And now that I get it in position, I want to take off the aesthetic plate, check my midline. You notice my midline still looks good. And I think here, let me activate our articulator. So I'm going to go into expert mode, and I'm going to start our articulator real quick. So right now it's just using standard settings, average anterior guidance. If you had, I think someone asked earlier about Gothic. So if you had those movements and those tracings, you can enter that into the articulator. Also with our zebras, to plug our zebras real quick, we have our digital face bow that also has jaw movements. We can import that into the virtual articulator, and that actually we can virtually grind in these teeth. So digital, that's another step in digital to be able to just make these fit as best as possible without a lot of analog, without a lot of grinding, because digital doesn't replace analog if you still have to do a lot of analog adjusting, which is why when we incorporate these other features such as the virtual articulator, we can grind these movements in digitally. Our mill will actually mill and remove these interferences for us. It's a good example of the difference between a workflow versus someone who is just scanning and designing dentures, splitting into two parts and say, you print it, you mill it, because then you still got to turn around and grind everything in. Our workflow here is actually virtually grinding that in, virtually removing those interferences for us. So it's a true workflow from start to finish. So we're going to let that finish simulating the movements. Let's bring this back in. So now I can move through these interferences. I can turn on and see. So you can see right there, let me move this jaw scan out of the way. You can already see some of my interferences. So I can grind that away virtually, and the mill will grind that away, and it's ready once we're done, once we complete the case. Okay, let's go back to the regular workflow. So I have that locked in. It's really helpful, especially when you want to move these. So let's say I have it like this, and I already know right here that's going to interfere. I can go in and I can lower this. I can raise this. I can remove that away. I just have multiple options that you can do to adjust those teeth. So let's go back to the wizard. Now we're on design the denture base bottom. Again, this is completely up to you how you want to design this. Actually, this is creating our bottom. So this is blocking out. Sorry, I thought we were designing. This is blocking out the model. So let's go back to analog for a second. You know, usually I'm surveying. I have to survey this. I have to duplicate it, and I have to pour another model, and then I'm waiting probably an hour for that stone to set up if you're doing block out models. Right now we're digitally blocking this out. we have the ability to control exactly how much blockout we want. For example, if we have a customer, we have a patient with very few undercuts, which is telling me that that denture is going to, you know, chances are it's going to pop out of there. I can tell it not to remove any undercuts to make sure we get a good fit and get a good seat and have some undercuts to hold that in. Digitally, you're able to control all that. And even now it's taken a couple minutes, but this is, you know, a fraction of the time if I was making this or surveying this and blocking it out the traditional analog way. And you'll see once this is complete, it's just a lot of data. Now I have my blockout model. Let's do the lower. So same thing, we're gonna block that out. Any questions so far while we're on this stage? While it's setting up?
Yeah. So how can you add an outside library to the program to kind of use? Oops, sorry.
Okay, let me open up something real quick.
And also too, if you can expand on the zebras and the integration a little bit more.
Okay. So here, here's our library. And the way our system works is, you notice we have articulator. So these are different articulators. We have a default with our articulators, but every one of these, we are completely open. So I like to dispel a myth because a lot of people say, oh, they're a closed system. We're a totally open system. I can take, for example, prosthetic tooth sets. So over here, these are our denture teeth. If you have a denture tooth library, you can drop those right into here and it becomes part of the library that you can select in the software. Just like our teeth, our Ponics, our model creators, our implants. I have 8 gigs of implant software. This one, I've kind of removed some of them right now, but right here is my implants. There's 4 gig right now. So you just drop it in. You literally copy that folder and you can drop it right into the software and it becomes part of your library. Okay, is that any more questions that answer that, or they have follow-up?
I have some more. Is it better to allow the software to adjust the interferences?
I say yeah. I would. You know what I mean? Because it's going to do it automatically. That's one of the advantages. If you have the software to do it, it's just like when you're digitally designing a crown and you click a button and it removes all the interferences. So instead of you know, having articulator paper and just tapping away all day, you click a button and digitally it removes it for you.
And what's the maximum heavy contact allowed before you should start adjusting it virtually?
So if you look at this chart up here, where my cursor is, it's like a weather map. It's like if you're looking at a thunderstorm. If you're in the red, that's 1 millimeter of intersection. That's where you got to grind a whole entire millimeter, which is a lot if you're doing that all over the arch. You know, dark blue is, you know, 0. Then you have, you know, 6 microns. So it depends on how much work you want to do. To me, I would reduce it. If I can click a button and it reduces it for me and I don't need to grind and I'm basically polishing at the end, I want to use that technology. But again, we leave it totally up to the customer. They can leave those interferences and do it themselves once they put it back on the articulator. But if I want to take advantage of the digital workflow, I'd much rather just click a button and be done.
Okay. In terms of intraoral scanning, have you tried using any kind of resin markers or any kind of other markers to help you with intraoral scanning for dentures?
No, so for us, it's our lab. We don't have a intraoral, so it's basically I help when the doctors are taking those intraoral scans, they know what the contours of the mouth are and the locations. So I just help them get that into our system. But as far as a preference, no, we deal with our lab scanner. But we can help. You know what I mean? We've had doctors that do that completely intraoral. They have really good skills with it. We also have we believe in peer-to-peer. So if we have a doctor that's already successful with it, we link that customer up with that doctor. We have quite a few doctors in our system that we refer other doctors to, and they work it, because they're in the chair doing it all the time. So. But if you can, I'll leave my information at the end. And if you have those questions, I'd rather hook you up with an expert that's using those intraoral scanners every day, because we're using the lab scanners on our side. Okay.
Perfect.
Any other questions? This is a good time for questions because it's still building this base right now. So right now I can tell you on this screen, our wizard is building the base based upon where I mark this border. So that's why it's taking a little while. It's a lot of data. No questions yet?
Hold on. Yeah, there is. So is it acceptable to leave 1 millimeter interference on the anterior tooth?
No, I wouldn't. I would remove it. I would remove it, definitely. Because so on our system. So here's the thing. This is a good. That's a great question, because if you don't have a workflow, let's say I'm just scanning, I'm designing, and it's going to generate 2 STLs. All the interferences you have, you're manually grinding that. There's no connection to grind that away. With us having our system, we know, okay, we have the mill, we have the process, we have the workflow, we have the partnership with the tooth makers to say, okay, we have this library, we have this interference, our mill is going to mill that. We have a way of holding the teeth in the arm to be able to mill those. So that 1 millimeter is capability. Our mill is capable. Our workflow is capable of removing that 1 millimeter.
Can you change the tooth placement individually?
Yes. If you remember when I went there and it was on chain mode, and I said let's lower or raise the cuspid out of, because we had that interference, I can grab just that tooth and tilt it and move it just like if I was doing a regular single unit design. Let me get this base done and I'll show you. We'll jump back to that spot and I'll show you how we'll move it, the single tooth individually. So now I'm just marking this, my border. And again, this is totally how you design your dentures. Some dentures, some designers will fill this entire border up. Totally up to you. You draw it exactly where you want it. And we'll let this base fill. We'll let this fill up, and then we'll actually jump back, which is kind of a cool feature, especially in exocad, where we can jump to a certain section, make an adjustment, and jump right back to where we were, and we don't have to go through the steps in between. We can go right back to where we were and continue with the process. And digitally, just to add to that question earlier, if you're taking an intraoral scan, you're not going to have all this border, but long as we have the data here and the relationship, when we import that in, it's just going to recognize it as data. It's not going to change anything based upon how the scan was brought in. Almost there. And this is our block out model. If I turn this off, as you can see, these are different views I can toggle off and on. Once the base is created, we can toggle that and show you the difference. You see the upper is already ready. We're just waiting on the lower to finish. And at this point, any time like this where it's calculating is where I would get my teeth ready. I would have everything set up. So once we're ready to mill or print, we're ready to proceed. How are we doing on questions? Everybody good right so far?
Yeah, hold on for 1 moment. How would you compare do things digitally as far as the fit goes in comparison to doing things manually or analog style?
It depends on which route. Okay, so let's look at materials. So if I mill this, if I decide I want to mill this base in acrylic puck, when that's manufactured, that's completely done. There's no mistakes because that material, it's a solid cured puck. Now when we do it, we're relying on mixing it, whether we inject it or whether we mix it. There's still that human aspect where there's some interferences, and the fact that it's heat curing, we have shrinkage, and that's just the nature of how it's made. So it's your interference is not necessarily you making a mistake. It's the fact that a puck that I'm milling out is already created. It's already made perfect. It's already solid. There's no shrinkage. So I'm milling a solid material as opposed to heat curing, flasking, or even old school with the plastic sheets and a hydraulic press. We're entering different variables where a mistake could be made as opposed to I'm putting the puck in the mill. So at that point, as long as the mill's calibrated and everything's done correctly maintenance wise, we're milling that. The fit is phenomenal. I was, I'm old school lab tech and have done it by hand. So once I saw it, once I saw the quality come out, I was a believer. So it is definitely digital has come a long way with the fit. Now, when you talk about printing, so that's what I mean, the materials is what's important. So if you talk about printing, it's a whole other ball game because you lose the control of that environment. And I've had customers that have gotten a $2,000 or $3,000 printer that they found on eBay, tried to print, and didn't like the fit. It has nothing to do with the system, nothing to do with software. It's a printer that wasn't even designed to print that resin material. So that's where your difference comes in, is your entire workflow. What quality are you using? So that's where digital, it really, you'll have people that'll say it's not accurate, and then you find out what they're using and you're like, okay, of course it's not accurate. You're not using the optimum equipment. All right, so we're here. We're on to the free-forming. Before we do that, let's jump back because we had that question about moving an individual too. So I'm going to go in the expert mode, and it's going to give me some options here. So let's say we're here and I noticed I didn't like something. I wanted something adjusted. I can go into correct placement, and it brings me back to this screen. So chain mode is what we were moving earlier. I can go into simple, and I can move this up or down. Let's just move it up real crazy. I can move that if I want, save that, and proceed. We're going to undo it. And the nice thing about it is once I come out of there and once I exit, I'm right back to the screen. I don't have to go through all those other steps that we did before because I was only moving one part of the workflow, which really is nice. If you get all the way into designing and you made some amazing gingival anatomy, and then you find out, oh, I got to move something. You don't lose all that. It jumps right back into where you were. So this part is where it depends on your artistic abilities. I'm going to show you a couple tricks I use when designing gingiva. This rainbow color is just showing you where you're thick or thin. Blue is I mean, it's just showing you got plenty of room. And the pink here, this goes back to what I was talking about, that thunderstorm. When you're looking at the weather map, this is thin, but I expect it to be thin because it's flowing down into the vestibule. What I do, I don't like seeing all those colors, so I'm going to turn this off for a second. And there's two trains of thought right here. What I do is if I'm going to, because there's some customers, you can mill this in your pink acrylic or fibered acrylic and spend a lot of time designing this and basically pumice and polish when you're done. Or you might see on a lot of chat groups or message boards, just some amazing multicolored with veins and everything, and you see the root eminences because they're using a lighter material. If you're gonna do that, I tell customers go to free, smooth flatten, and we're just gonna smooth this like a canvas. If we're painting, we're just gonna make a nice smooth canvas to work with. I tell them don't spend a lot of time. Don't spend a lot of time festooning if you're gonna end up doing it by hand. If you're gonna do it by digital, we'll flatten this, and I'll use these three as an example. You can go here. One of the tricks I use is I use my cylinder. It'll look crazy at first, trust me though. We'll make it look like a denture. Then I'll follow the axis of the tooth here. You see this one's tilted a little bit, so I'll go here. Then I'll go to the cuspid, and I'm following that axis right here, straight up here to add this. And if you want it more prominent, you just make it hold it a little bit longer. And now what I do is I go on either side and I go a little bit lighter. And now I go to smooth flatten over here. I go to my paintbrush, increase the strength, increase the brush size. And now I just paint over that. And just giving it a little bit more anatomy.
Hey Mo, when navigating all this, what's the best component to use? A mouse, a pen, a ball? What do you recommend?
I use a mouse and I use a 3D mouse as well. When I train with just a mouse because that's what our customers have. It's a feel thing. You know what I mean? It's just like asking when you paint, what what brush do you use? It really is a feel. Most customers will know pretty quick what's more comfortable. Right now I have a regular mouse and I have a 3D mouse with it. So let me grab another one. I'll show you what you can do if you once you get really comfortable and spending a lot of time with it, you can really design so you can really get fancy with it and do this in design, do everything in design. I can change my tooth colors. Let's go back. Let's work on this one. So it's another one of our modules is what we call True Smile. So let's say we're doing, they want to see B1. I select B1, it changes all the colors of B1. They want bleach. Or if it's back in the 90s and somebody wanted a gold denture grill, you can, you can change the colors. So those are just the, you know, some of our visual options we can show our customers. So let's go back to what we had a question earlier when they were talking materials. What we have is a monoblock, so we can generate a monoblock as a try-end and make this one restoration or one. So right now you have two. You have the teeth, which we're going to put on the teeth cards, and then you have the base, which you can mill or print. You can mill it in wax, you can mill it in acrylic, or print it in your printer. Or you can continue this and generate as a, but that's as one, or you can do a monoblock and print this whole thing as a try-in. So for us, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. We don't tell our customers, here's our denture workflow, and you're on a train track and you're basically locked into this workflow. What we say is FDS is our base, but we give you multiple options to go in different directions according to what materials you want to use, and what works best for your practice or lab. So we can generate that, or I can continue without monoblock, and it'll take us into our production.
Hey Mo, can you copy the digital anatomy like you can in the Baltic system?
No, that is actually patented. You mean the palette? Like if I wanted to have
exactly.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
That's patented. So yeah, that copies. What we found out is most customers, if you look at the majority of the dentures, they don't have that. I think it's pretty cool to be able to copy that exact. But it actually feels, some of the patients, it feels weird to them because they're used to filling that 3 millimeters lower. So if you make that 3 millimeters thicker and then they're filling it, it doesn't feel as natural, because when you rub your rugai, there's give to it, there's softness to it. In acrylic, it is a hard feature. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, that particular one is patented by BDS with the BDS system. So then we would proceed to production. I'm just going to show the cam real quick because I want to show that arm so you can see what I mean by, or you can see how the cards are snapped in. So I talked earlier about the denture tooth cards and CAD/CAM cards. They're a little different. They hold the teeth in with wax. Ours are CAD/CAM because we actually have a holder that holds those teeth and allows us to mill the underside of the teeth. So for those who have made dentures and have ground the underside to get it to fit on the base plate, our mill, our software, our workflow will grind all that for you. So we'll use this. On this screen, you can see other dentures that were made. So here's the arm. And to tie that into our motion too, as technology has improved, for us, we didn't have to make a new mill. We just made a new arm to be able to add this workflow to our system. So you see right here, we have our denture teeth in the cards. The mill will mill the underside for us, and you basically snap it in like a puzzle into the sockets. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay. So that really concludes what we've done today. I want to thank you for joining me. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can reach out to Jesse and Holly and or email me direct, and we can answer those questions for you. But this is our FDS, our base workflow, and then just look out for in the future, because we'll be doing different webinars on the actual different avenues to take the different workflows within our system. So thank you for joining. I hope I was able to help.
There's a couple of questions.
Okay.
First, can you take, instead of doing a wax drying, can you go and mill it up in acrylic and just go straight to final?
Yes. So I usually have the customers go through a couple of try-ins to make sure their process is correct. So if you do a 2 or 3 try-ins and you're nailing them and you're repeating that process, it's easier to trust the system, and you can go straight to acrylic. So yeah, we like I said, we don't force our customers into a workflow. We give them options and they pick the one they want.
And then can you make one denture with an opposing natural arch?
Yes. So we do have single arch workflow. And it's just, we bring it in. So when we brought in that first screen, let me bring in our database screen again. So the difference is we would tell it, okay, we're doing an upper, and then we would tell this an antagonist. So then our software will be looking for antagonist model. And again, we can still activate the articulator like we did before. And all the occlusal interferences will be recognized, and it's recognizing that as an antagonist, as a lower arch.
Okay. In regards to, or actually, can you go over the teeth options that are available now and will be available in the near future?
Teeth options as far as libraries or the actual
cards? The actual teeth, the actual cards.
Okay, so we have. Let me bring that back up. I can show because we have the Colzer and we have Vita coming soon. But we have the Colzer teeth, the Pala. Let me pull it up. Let's go back and I'll show you guys what we have in here. Those are the Pala, and then we have our Vita. Vita will be coming soon. These are just other libraries that I've picked up. So you got to remember, there's two different routes. So you got your libraries with the CAD/CAM cards, and then you have denture tooth libraries. So denture tooth libraries, you're either going to print that on your own or mill those in your own material. The cards, definitely, as we partner with more companies, it's more automated. It's more automated as far as the reductions. Our software will still reduce it, and it's just how you mill those and print those out, or that's where it's a little different from having the actual denture cards with us.
Okay, and one last question, and then we'll go and wrap it up.
Okay.
If you're designing a partial with the M part module, and you're designing a denture, opposing it, can you do everything at the same time, or do you have to complete one and then scan it and then do the other?
You're going to complete one and scan the other because it's two totally different systems. It's not like our denture workflow is focused strictly on dentures, and partials is on partials. But the thing is, for example, once you create that and you save that as an STL and bring that in, it has no idea that it's a lower or a lower with an RPD. It's just data. It's data, and it's going to recognize that as the lower, and then you just make the upper on top of that.
Okay, great. So, all right, I'm going to go and take over the screen, and we'll go ahead and wrap this up.
All right.
Hold on for one moment. Can you see my screen? Oops. Mo, can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, great. All right, so everybody, thank you for attending. We appreciate it. Hopefully, we were able to get all your questions answered, and if you still have any questions, feel free to reach out to Holly, Mo, or I, and we'll definitely go ahead and get those answered for you. Just to let you be aware of kind of some of the specials we have right now. We are offering 15% off all modules, and that would be all AmannGirrbach modules. And today, the module that Mo covered was the deep flow denture module. That's right there in the middle. And usually it goes for $27.60 with the discount that we're looking at $23.46. So if you are interested and you want to know what components you need, just feel free to reach out. Mo, I'm right in assuming you'll need the RFXDR to be able to have full function with the dentures, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So a couple of other things that we're offering right now is 0% finance options for purchases $5,000 and up. We have different terms that are available, anything from 1, 2, and 3 years. Or if you want to do a 6-month deferral payments, you don't have to make any payments right now, but you can learn the software. We're here for you. And here's our contact information. It's me on the left and Holly on the right. If you have any questions at all, just feel free to reach out. And if you want us to send you the video for the future webinars or past webinars, reach out as well. And again, we do have another webinar today at 12 o'clock with NextDent to cover printing digital dentures. So if you have time, we would love to have you there. Otherwise, thank you for attending, and we're talking to you again soon. And Mo, thank you for the presentation. I know I learned a lot from it, and everybody had a lot of questions. So I know that from the feedback, looks like everybody learned a lot from it as well. So
awesome. Thanks for having me. Have a great day, everyone.